at your world and you start to see the chaos. Because our thoughts create our realities. This is not some New Age philosophy. As you think, so shall you be. This has been inscribed way before. You know, the Oracle of Adelphi had it on the wall. Man, know thyself. Know thyself. Why? It's not some New Age thing. We all need. If ye only believe, you would tell this mountain, move. Uproot yourself and plant yourself in the ocean, and it will. Isn't that what we're told in Scripture? If you only knew. So what is it that inside of you that you know, Christ tells us that if you only believed, the things I do, you will do, and even more. Ever thought about that? Maybe we look at him and we say, well, wait a second, this was just all, you know, it's Bible stuff. I'm not going to get into that. Well, what if you had somebody that you would looked up to? So, I'll take an example. How many people, let's get a volunteer, for instance. Who want to volunteer in this exercise? Anybody? Can I pick somebody? Okay, let's see. Would you volunteer? So who is it that you look up to and you say, hey, that person is extraordinary. I wish I could do like that. Your grandmother. So let's just kind of take your grandma, for instance, and ask yourself, what are some things about your grandmother that you think were extraordinary?
She's very, very graceful.
Very graceful. Okay, what else?
Very forgiving.
Very forgiving.
She's non-judgmental.
Non-judgmental.
I don't know, she's just wonderful. She's beautiful. She loves everybody. She'll never holler about Nana.
That's right. Now, do you see those same qualities inside of you?
Sometimes I do. I mean, I honestly wouldn't probably admit it on a daily basis, but I see her in me.
Absolutely. Would you agree that she may not see and meet on a daily basis that she's not as extraordinary as she thinks she may be?
As she gets older, she's like, hey, I'm pretty awesome. But in her younger years, I would think, yeah, she probably struggles the same as I do.
That's right. Because we all have that, right? But if you look and you start to dismantle, you take that person, you break every single thing about them, you start to see that you yourself possess the exact same qualities as she does. Nothing is missing. It's just a change in how we view it. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Who else? Let's take somebody that we think, let's take Oprah, for instance, right? Let's talk about Oprah. She's exceptional, right? Let's throw out some qualities about Oprah that we all think, man, she's just out of the world extraordinary. What are some things?
Resilient.
She's determined, okay? What else? Generous. What else?
A go-getter.
She's a go-getter. That's right. And what else?
Resilient.
She's a communicator.
Intelligent.
She's intelligent.
She's curious.
She's curious. What else?
Persistent.
She's an advocate. Do you start to see when you look at, as you call out those qualities, you can see that you embody each and every one of those in some aspect, in some way of your life. Would you agree with me?
Yeah.
Are you curious? Are you intelligent? Would you consider yourself intelligent? Would you consider yourself generous? Within the bounds of your ability. Because there are times when you've done something that somebody who had more than you couldn't do. Right? You know, it was Martin Luther King who said, you know, if you want to be important, wonderful. If you want to be great, wonderful. But recognize that he who is greatest amongst you is also your servant. You don't need, as he said, your verb and your subject to agree in order to be great. You don't need to understand the laws of thermodynamics in order to be great. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. We all have that, don't we? We have those qualities inside of us. So what makes us stop? What makes us stop at a point and say, well, I'm not good enough. I'm not generous enough. I'm not an advocate enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not intelligent. Do you see how sometimes you can talk yourself out? And then it's going to lead to self-effacement, where you become timid about your own abilities. And I'm going to be the first to agree that I was, for a very long time, going through this disease process. Self-effacement. I was very timid, shy. And as I trace it back, it goes to my childhood. See, I was raised in a very poor area in Africa, Cameroon specifically. And it wasn't easy, because I saw what my friends went through. I mean, they lived on less than $5 a day. That's the reality. We didn't have cars. See, I mean, I wasn't privileged enough, right, that my folks would have a car to drive me to school. Had to pay public transportation. School bus wasn't free. Had to walk to school some days. It wasn't easy. And this was in the 80s we're talking about. Not sometime in the 70s, this was in the 80s. You know, I tell people sometimes you gotta, at this same moment where you're going through, since you're sitting here, there's somebody somewhere half across the world who don't have nearly as much as you do. Sometimes it takes you being outside. You gotta take yourself out of the picture so you can see the frame better. I was going through this for a very long time, because what I kept hearing, what my mom told me at some point was, we don't have enough, right? We don't have enough. But I also knew she believed in me, because there were times when she was always encouraging. She was my greatest cheerleader. She was my best cheerleader, I would say. And then it hit me once she passed away, and I was already here in the United States, and I couldn't go back and say my last goodbyes. Now that tore me into shreds. And for a very long time, for almost 8 years, I was sitting down, beating myself up. How did this happen? I couldn't get my face out. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't tap into the power that I talk about, because I was what? Just going through that emotion. How can someone who is so loving, someone who is so generous, someone who believed in me, you know, I'm sorry, guys. It's sometimes, you know, it's been 8 years and counting, but thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. Sometimes you got to give yourself permission to be extraordinary. You just have to. Because you can stay in this zone for a very long time. And I always say sometimes a man is beaten down so much, and so he starts to believe that's where he ends. The best way to kill a man's knowledge of himself is to kill his history. If he doesn't know where he comes from, he doesn't know where he's going. If he's been beaten down for too long, he starts to believe that's where he belongs. And then you become timid, you become shy. You don't even know your own boundaries, you don't know your own limits. You don't know because you haven't caught a glimpse of your divinity. You don't realize and recognize that, as Benjamin Banneker said, that the strength of the mind is in no way connected to the color of the skin. You don't even realize what Seneca, the Roman philosopher, said when he said there's something, the divinity inside of us. It's large. There's a certain divinity that is large inside of the man and the mind. And it can be the blessing of a slave as well as a prince. So I started holding my head up after a while and calling myself a prince, and owning up to my name, princely. I started asking, what does it really mean to be princely? It means to be royal. It means to be noble. But that quality is inside of each and every one of us. How do you tap into that and bring it out of you? Self-effacement is going to kill you faster than anything else. See, your timidity about what you can do and what you cannot do, and you see this not only in yourself, you see this even in your students. Their timidity about what they can achieve or what they cannot achieve is going to be by far more destructive than even their competence of themselves. Their ability to do anything and you look at him and you see that. You see that inside of you. You start to question, what in the world am I here for? And then it leads you to this, doubt. Oh, this is the big one. Because the moment you doubt, you capitulate to your enemy, right? You give way. The moment you start to doubt, you start to give all powers to somebody else. You take everything from you and you give it to somebody else. You wouldn't want to do that, would you? So don't doubt yourself. Trust yourself, because there are things that you have that other people don't have. Trust yourself. I talked about this when I taught the class the other day about your emotional guidance. What are the things that will make you go downward spiral? And what are the things that will make you go upward spiral? Look at what's going to get you go down. Boredom, frustration, irritation, impatience, overwhelmed, right? Disappointed, doubt. You start to go through all of these things and ask yourself, why? Why me? Why now? When you doubt, you go through all of this stuff, discouragement, revenge, and then you realize you're not worthy. That's why despair, as we say, despair is one of the cardinal sins, right? Isn't that what we're told in Scripture? Despair, lack of hope. Keep your head in the sand. You're not able to take it out. But look what happens when you start to believe in yourself. Contentment, hopefulness, optimism, expectation. You know, when you expect better from yourself, when you expect better from your students, and you say, wait a second, I want to transform lives in here. When I come into class every single day, I want them to be transformed. I want them to be changed. Not because I'm going to change them, because I'm going to stir something inside of them that gets them to realize their own potential. Because they just may have never heard. Somebody may just never told them before. You know, it was Father Keller who said, a candle does nothing by lighting another candle. Nothing. So why not change them? Why not transform them? But it starts with you. Because as we always say, you cannot give what you don't have. You cannot draw water from an empty well. So if you don't have the substance inside of you, how can you bring it out in somebody else? If you're doubting yourself, how can you empower somebody else? If you have self-distrust, how can you tell somebody else to have trust in you? Your credibility is going to be at hand, right? Because they're going to be looking at you and going, no, I don't believe the thing you